Vais acabando, por favor. Egun on eta ongi etorri Donostia Zinemaldiaren izenean. Bienvenidos.
Welcome to the press conference of the latest film that has been projected in the official section, the competitive side of the 63rd edition of the Saint Sebastian International Film Festival. The production, which is a Canadian film, Les Démons, The Demons, and the participation in the press conference is the director and the screenplay writer Philippe Lesage, actors Edouard Tembrel-Grenier, Pascal Bouzier, and Rosemary Perrol, and also the producer of the film, Galilée Marion Gauvin, is with us. Let's commence the press conference, and whoever wants to ask a question may do so now.
Fondo, por favor.
At the back there, please. Hi, good afternoon. I liked your film, well planned, Pasolini's music at the end, the traveling on the pool where you see Rosemary. But I would like to highlight something today in this remark that I'm going to make. And albeit there are very few people in the press conference, they're going to miss it. There's an actress here that in a few years we will see her make it great, Rosemary Perrol, that along with the little boy is the best actress in the film, but undoubtedly I saw her in French TV, Le Poupin de Ménard, I believe. The Poupin de Ménard, I loved it. They showed it on Channel 3 on French TV, and I would like to highlight this. Whoever's not here is going to miss it. And he's speaking in French now. Thank you very much for your film. That's what he's saying. Yes, it was her first role in a film for Edouard as well as Rosemary. It was the first time. Yes, before I'd done a short film, yes, I'd done a short. Well, that's great that this journalist has seen it who's so well informed. It's our first role in a feature film. Yes, it's the first time that we participate in a feature film. The short that you're talking about, you've talked about, yes, it's true that I did work in that short that the journalist was referring to. It's your first job, and it's fantastic. By the way, I would like to welcome Pascal Bouzier. It's great that you're here because she's one of the great actresses from Canada who has worked quite often in France. And albeit the film, you play a role which is not too extensive or too long. Peggy Ashcroft always said there's no short role for a great actress. Talk to us about your character, and that I hope you come back to the film festival with much more, but with a longer role, shall we say. Thank you very much. No, there aren't any small roles, I agree with you. And as regards to the role that I play as a mother, the mother of this boy in Philippe's film, yes, we did have to carry out a lot of improvisation, especially in that scene where the mother, where there's a family crisis that takes place. And it was interesting to work, especially in that scene. It's quite a long scene. We had to shoot it quite a few times, and we had to sort of do it like choreography. Philippe wanted us to explore that space where the scene was. That's why we walked around the house a lot, and we wanted to create that choreography, but with quite a bit of improvisation, because Philippe, he trusts his actors and actresses. He allows us to improvise. But the objective is also to try to seek out and find the truth. I think that's very important in the way he approaches things. That is why the work has been very pleasant for us as actors. Good morning. or good afternoon, and welcome to San Sebastian. We journalists love this film festival, and I would like to now ask the question to the director. And knowing that the mindset that children have is a mindset which is very difficult to understand, what was the starting point? What did you inspire yourself upon in order to go in depth into a child's mindset, which is very difficult to understand at times? Thank you. Well, it's simple. First of all, well, I think about myself. Felix's character that Edouard portrays is inspired a little of my own childhood. The work has consisted in seeking the source and trying to explore the imaginary and real demons that I may have experienced when I was a child. And in that sense, it's not been work of worrying about how a child thinks, but I had to submerge myself in that period of time of my life. But I'm under the impression that in general, the different compartments and walls between the life of an adult or the child and a child in childhood, we have to decompartmentalize things. Children think much more on things, much more than what we believe. Felix's character quite often has a great lucidity at times, which is sometimes mixed with his imagination, and that offers us very interesting results. Children think a lot, much more than what we think, and we as adults, we've also all been children, of course, and we're all able to identify ourselves with a child. So therefore, I believe there's a continuity, quite simply, in the development of, for example, fear and anxiety. Calm down as we become adults for some, but on the contrary, in some cases, a fetus in the womb of a mother is already struggling to survive. We always see that there's a struggle there, and at the end in life, there aren't, well, we are afraid when we're kids and children, but then they turn into fears when we're adults, and we have to know how to live with them. And that's what gives our life beauty. All of us to learn to live with our fears, and those overcome the fears so that we can all find our way in life. Question for the director. I would like to ask you, all of these fears that you've talked about now, the way in which you've portrayed them on the screen, I seem to have seen a lot of long scenes non-stop and not edited, and then also the use of the music in the film in order to create that special atmosphere that you created. Thank you. I don't like to cut too many scenes when I shoot. I don't like to do that. I like the best editors, those are the people that don't like to cut, and I work with an editor who agrees with my point of view. I wanted to achieve a certain simplicity and also give room for the actors and actresses to experience quite freely. We never set down any marks for the lighting. We cut very little in the editing room, and that allowed us to for the actors to portray their roles with total freedom. And this is something that the actors have enjoyed and have liked, and they have liked the way this technique. And I also believe that we allow time to transpire, because we're also talking about the internal life of children in the film. That's the idea. And I believe that this is something which is quite risky. The life of the interior is very difficult to record and to film, but we gave them time in order to understand and to evolve with Felix and Edouard and live with them, and also to evolve along with them. And the fact that we may, if we cut anything out, I'm not interested in that. I want to give a lot of freedom to the audience as well. And sometimes in films, it's as if the director took us by the hand too much, and in the editing they try to make us feel certain specific emotions, whereas the magic of a continuous sequence scene allows us to complete the scene each of us with our own experiences. I hope such is the case, or less allows us to ask ourselves questions. But I think this links to a respect to a certain logic in life which is real and that I'm interested in. And this is what I've wanted to demonstrate, to give that image, a real-life image within fiction. I hope I've answered your question too, by the way. Next question, please. 1 second, please. Microphone. Okay, I'd like a question to Edward, to the child. Edward, can you tell me how this experience was for you? How, when we see the film, we see that there are moments that are difficult and tough moments, and even a lot of anguish went through you. But what can you tell us about, did you suffer a lot? Was it difficult for you? Did the director make you suffer at any given moment? Or on the contrary, has it been a very pleasant experience? No, it has been a marvelous experience. The truth is that Philippe with me has been fantastic. I think I've been able to work with the best possible crew. I've had the good fortune of making my first film with a fantastic group of people, the truth be said. And Philippe has been the best director. Next question, please. Hi. Good afternoon. I would like to ask the director, the issue of the childhood, of that imaginative world of the child, and with so many demons in children's minds is quite clear. But why have you introduced that horrible side of things of the pederast that doesn't have too much to do with that? I thought it interesting to express from the outset that there's an idea of those imaginary fears. Those imaginary fears of the child can also, those fears can also link to that side of the real world that really we're afraid of. The idea is not to have a paranoid vision of life and existence, but that threat does exist. In that autobiographical search, I also saw that threat that existed. When I was a child in the 1980s in Montreal, in Longueuil, there was a wave of kidnappings of children of my age, and we lived in a climate and an atmosphere, an environment. For the first time, we started to talk about pedophiles and pedophilia, and through my older brother, I heard stories about maniacs, which were terrifying for me. So therefore, it was interesting to create that character that represents, or which is the synthesis of that fear. But it does link to something that's real, that took place in my childhood, with that wave of kidnappings that took place in my neighborhood and in Montreal, and at that period in my childhood. And we can also establish a parallel aspect here between Felix on the one hand and the character of Ben, the swimming teacher. And that parallelism or parallel aspect is a child like him. Apart from the horrors he commits, because he does something atrocious in the film, but perhaps it's not a person who continues to be a child, in the sense that children can also be cruel and do things that are strange, and they explore things, and we see this in the film as well. I also wanted to go a bit further beyond taboos, for example, the sexuality of children, amongst other things, and we see this character that in a certain sense is a child who has been trapped in the demons of his past without being able to free himself from them. And this person who's so young is someone who's controlled and dominated by their internal demons, and he becomes a victim of his own illness. I don't want to hide that I also felt like of making a beautiful film that will talk about childhood, but also I thought that what was interesting to go a bit further on, go a bit beyond that as regards to the expectations that the audience may have. And so therefore I thought that in the middle of the film there should be something which was completely that character should appear for 20 minutes in the middle of the film, I thought, or character, as to give us a point of view or deconstruct the narrative line of the film, but all of this backed up by the reasons that I've explained so far in this press conference. Next question, please. Yes, I'd like to ask the director how he worked with the young actors, where there was a lot of improvisation and so forth. I come from a documentary. This is my first fiction feature film, and I was a bit afraid of documentaries, as you know, may generate something that's too burdensome. No, but I wanted a small crew and to work with a small crew, and quite often at the end there were a lot of people where we were shooting the film, but I wanted to allow the actors to feel they're in an environment which was light and plus with the budget that we had, and with Galilée, with the producer, we decided that we were going to shoot for a period of 35 days instead of only 20 days, as would have been normal with that kind of budget. And to give us time, we needed time. For me, what was essential is to have the luxury of being able to shoot, even take with 50 takes, or to film a scene as many times as was necessary, and have the luxury of allowing the actors to improvise and to appropriate what was written in the script. They can take the dialogues, they could transform them whichever way they wanted, and to use those words and to add their own personal touch to the character. I'm glad that such is the case, because when my creativity links to the creativity of the actors, I love that. And in fact, there were moments that were fantastic. For example, in the scene that Pascal was talking about beforehand, on the screenplay I'd written a certain dialogue, but Pascal and Laurent Lucas appropriated themselves. They took the scene into their hands, and at the end what they did was not what it appeared on the script or the screenplay, but the spirit that I put on the script was there. So there was a combination of both things, allowed them to have total freedom as possible freedom. But we did film, and we made a lot of takes, because we were seeking authenticity, and I thought that was very important. Perhaps when we repeated things, interesting things did emerge quite often, and the actors forgot that they were shooting a film. They felt very much more natural, and it'd be great that a director should forget that he's making films. I sometimes have that impression myself, and like a wise Taoist says, a good swimmer is the person who forgets that he's in the water. And I thought that's that's an interesting aspect, and I think that's my perspective, and that's the spirit I used in my work, and that's the type of directing that I've used with my actors. Hi everyone. First of all, I would like to ask Pascal and Edouard as well, how does one get prepared for a sequence like the one in the discussion, the argument that arrives at a very powerful climax? Is it more complicated to prepare a sequence of that nature in portraying your role and when your work as an actor? How do you prepare for that?
Comme je le sentais, parce que déjà que l'ambiance était forte, donc on pouvait déjà rentrer.
It was a very heavy atmosphere, so therefore that allowed me to enter much better into the character, and it is true that we felt terrified with that fight. It's as if they were the members in our family who were fighting. We felt very disturbed, so therefore, and we took full advantage of that, I imagine. The truth it was quite difficult to prepare, but But that's how we felt it, quite naturally, I think. It is true that when you play a demanding sequence portrayal, for everyone it's much easier to understand it and live it. There was an indication at the beginning in the scene is that the children always had to be amongst us, between us all the time, to follow us. Like a protective, like a band of people protecting the mother almost, and so therefore we did this quite naturally. One can't prepare oneself before shooting a scene like that. You have to prepare yourself even less so, because Philippe told us before some scenes, he said, don't even talk to each other before, and so that you can get there with the tension itself and the intention in mind. So don't even talk to each other before shooting the scene. Next question, please. Any further questions? Okay. End of the press conference. Thank you very much to all of you. And thank you very much for attending, ladies and gentlemen.